It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our AIOS President, Dr. Mahipal Sachdev. Of course, he needs no introduction. Apart from being an active participant in all ophthalmic conferences, physical and now virtual, Dr. Sachdev is the chairman for Center for Sight and President AIOS. Dr. Mahipal is also the chairman of IRSI. He is amongst the very few ophthalmologists who have received the Padma Shri Award from the Government of India. Center for Sight now operates 51 centers across 31 cities. To know more about how to establish such a large chain of centers and how to go about financing and funding for the same, we have Dr. Mahipal sir talking about his experience and teachings.
Thank you very much, Rohan. Being a pleasure to see the youthful IRSI taking on the lead, and I think it's the youth who is going to take forward ophthalmology in this present era. And I congratulate all of you for doing such a wonderful job. And we would be the most happy to see you doing much better, X time, much better than what we have done in our life. I think you have a bigger format, a bigger canvas, and a bigger horizon to play on than we had maybe 30-40 years. So I'll be talking about how to acquire the critical funds. See, most important thing is that as Himanshu said in the earlier part, that in med school or otherwise we are not talked about administration, we are not talked about management, we are not talked about finance. There is the gunpowder that you require to win a war, and that is funds. You cannot compete with your hands tied back that I have only 100 rupees and I have the success stories will be few. It is not going to be that every person who has the skill will be able to succeed, because you might be lacking something in the alchemy that makes you successful. So therefore funds are something very important which is there, and you need funds for, first is that you need it for expansion. You need it for buying infrastructure. As Quresh said today, the euro or the dollar having appreciated so much, the same microscope that I would buy for 30 lakh rupees today, I have to pay 70 lakhs because the depreciation in the Indian rupee has been so strong that is the problem that you have to have in the business. And then you have to have a working capital. And as people in the North India know, you all know that there are 3-4 months which are absolutely dry for us. Nowadays, we do have some refractive surgery at that particular time, but your cataracts just dry up. Now there are, I am not taking up the third part, which is from equity, debt, and there is something called as trust and donation. So I am not really attuned to trust and donation, but in India, the trust and the donation model has been successful, where you can look at a Shankar Netralaya or an LVP having a donation from the Ek Duje Ke Liye profit that was there, or the land that was given at Banjara Hills by Mr. LV Prasad. So there is a trust, and I really don't have any significant knowledge about trust. The only thing that I know about trust is that is a way to create something, but that is not a way to create value and wealth for yourself, because at the end of the day you cannot take away money from a trust. The trust is something which is a locked asset, and it is somebody else's money that is sitting there. You're just a trustee until, of course, you do something wrong to siphon away money. It is a locked kind of a situation, and it is based on donation. So I really would not be the best person, because till date I have hardly taken even a single rupee of donations as a trust or something like that. Now there are two basic things which are there. One is equity and one is debt. Debt essentially means a loan. Equity means participation. So that means that if you form a company, in a company, you will be giving away part of the company to the investor that is coming in, or the person, whether it's a partnership, whether it be another doctor or anybody else. It is actually the amount of money that you put into the business that will split your shares between the holder who has put in that money to buy that shares. Like today, there is nothing, I can go to the market and tomorrow buy X number of listed company. I can be a shareholder and an equity holder of Reliance, or if I want Apple, or I want to buy Google, or I want to buy Amazon or anything. So that basically you would be owning a part of it, and there is no monthly payment that is required. So when you have an equity at that particular time, you are just investing into a company, and there is no monthly payment that is required. But in a debt, you would be making a monthly payment, and that is, you will have to pay the interest. You may get an initial moratorium period. That means that if I have taken debt, some people can start the interest payment after 6 months, 1 year, and then they say you keep returning the capital that is there, that you have taken the original debt. So the difference is that here the person is participating in your growth or degrowth. Your absolute investment is not tied to a return that is monthly basis. He may at the end of the day take a return on the capital that he wants, a 15% return or a 20% return, but that is the big difference between equity and debt. I hope that you have understood. Now, when you are looking at the risk, see, the debt and the equity, the major difference is the risk that is taken. That is the most important thing. And equity invested by an angel investor. So these are starters, like somebody jo aapke liye angel ban ke aaya. That means that this guy is giving you funds even when you are working on an idea. That I have an idea, I have a concept, and this idea and this concept will sell. That is why you have to have an investment thesis, and you have to tell him okay, boss, this is my investment idea. This is my thesis. You give me this much money, and hopefully down the line, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line, you will be able to make money on it. So what has to be done is that the founders and the angels take almost equal risk. That is there. They perform due diligence, and they only thing is that they require warranties from the founders. ये नहीं है that the founder is making a fool of me, taking away my money and running away. So they will tie you down into this thing that if there is a liquidation of the company, I will be the first one as an angel investor to get my money out. You will also invest in the business. It is not that you ask me to invest 100 rupees and you invest zero, because the point is that I'm an angel investor. I am investing in you and your idea. I am not investing in an established business. That is the big difference between an angel investor and an investor who comes in subsequently. And the next thing is that the funds they could release in stages. That means that you say that, okay, for this idea to incubate, I need 10 crore of rupees. For this idea to go on to the actual stage of being seeing that it is getting implemented, and then stage of growth, so I need another 50 crores and another 100 crores. So they can break it into tranches. That is there. Now, money borrowed from a bank, the risk is absolutely not there. But there is a risk, but it is like you have a Malia running away or a Nirav Modi running away. That's something different. But the risk has to be covered by the banks so that they do not become non-performing assets. That is the most important thing. The RBI is very, very strict now that if I have to give you a loan, I have to have my back protected. That means that there has to be a collateral security. There has to be a personal guarantee that has to be given by yourself, which has to be there. And therefore, the risk of the founders is very, very great. So if you sink, you sink. The banks are not going to come to your rescue. They are going to put you to liquidation. For example, Vasan Eye Care is today under liquidation because they have a lot of loans on them, which is tantamounting to 1,200 crores. So because they could not pay 1,200 crores, they are under liquidation. So it is the point is that you have to go broke first, and then the bankers will be going broke. So the point here is the risk has to be there in debt, which has to be totally that of the founder. Now, when you look at the funding journey, this is what I said. First is the proof of concept. So I'm not talking just about ophthalmology, but I'm just saying that you have to have a proof of concept. And the proof of concept funding initially comes from founders, family, and friends. So it is my money. Like when I left AIMS, it was my PF money that was there, money that I had saved, and my family, they contributed that, okay, fine, you can give this money and you can take. So there is majority of it was my money. So it is the founder who has to establish the proof of concept. Then the next thing that comes is the startup, which is the seed money. So a business angel would come in here. Then when you go on to early growth, where your proof of concept has been established, that means that mera kaam chal pada hai. At that particular time, the impetus for the growth, you could have first round, second round, third round. So for example, developmental capital, that is for like I have had 4 rounds of investment starting from Hindustan Times, Matrix 1, Matrix 2, and now Mahindra. So there are 4 rounds of investment that have happened. Lenskart has had 16 rounds of investment till date. So it all depends on where you are, whether you're looking at an early growth, you're looking at accelerated growth or sustaining growth. So that is where you have, and that is where you have a venture capital come in and a private equity come in, and also you play with debt. That is something very, very important, that you have to leverage debt. As Himanshu was saying that we are very afraid of debt. I think we have to leverage debt because debt is the cheapest way to get funds. Today, with a 7% interest, 6% interest, 8% interest, it is the cheapest way rather than parting your equity. See, if your company is growing at 15%, 20%, 25%, you are giving away 25% to a private equity as compared to a debt of 7%. Earlier, the debt was 16 to 18%, 17, 18%, and the private equity was asking 24%. The private equity will typically ask for a higher piece than the prevailing debt market because they are taking the risk. Please remember this, that you have to pay more, but then the money comes at lesser collaterals, they come with lesser problems, and these guys are participating in your growth. So this is what it is. And finally, I would say you will come on to a public listing and IPO. Just now today, I would say in India, there are I think 2 eye care chains which are listed. One is Agarwal's and one is Lotus Eye Care. So these are the only 2 listed eye care, which needs to increase. But if you look at the biggest listing in eye care, that is by Ayer Group, which is in China. So AIER. So that is the biggest listing, which I don't know the valuation just now, but they were close to about 20 billion US dollars, and they control 10% of the market of China as regards. And I think they have about 40 or 50 smile machines that they have. So that depends. Now let us look at the business financing cycle, which I told you. This is called as Valley of Death. What exactly is meant as valley of death? That means that this is where you could sink your money. The money that you have invested in something could be sunk. More often than not, out of the 10 startups, again, I'm not talking about ophthalmology alone, but if you have 10 startups, 9 will fail or 8 will fail. So there are a lot of people who will go into this valley of death. And this is where the angels and the seed capital people, family and friends, where they can lose money. You can lose money obviously at a founder or a co-founder, but angels, financial people and seed capital people, they will do. But when you go on to a growth where sinking of the money is not the issue, like if you have invested 10 rupees, you might not get 20, you might get 12, or you might get 8. But it is not that your 10 rupees are going to go into waste, because the proof of concept is established and that is there. Then you come on to the first stage, second stage, third stage, you can have mezzanine debt, and then you can go on to the IPO. So this is a time horizon as to where you are in the starting of your business, as to who comes and invests into you. Now, let us just tell you as to the risk and expected returns. If I am going to invest as a seed capital or an angel fund, and I know that 80% is going to fail, or 85 or 90% or 60% is going to fail, I want my risk to be covered. My one investment, say if I make one investment in DoorDash, or I have made an investment in Airbnb, like SoftBank made the investment, the multiplier would be very high, and in others they have failed. So you saw that the big bust that was there in WeWork, that was there for SoftBank. So they busted the money in WeWork, but they made their money in, say, Airbnb, or they have made their money in DoorDash. So the point is that they are expecting a huge return if they succeed, and their expectations in a seed fund is about 60% year on year. When you go on to first round of investment, again, they are looking at 45 to this thing, second round 30. And when you're looking at growth capital, so today if somebody is investing in Center for Site, the typical IRR that they will, IRR is internal return of rate of return. That is the amount of money that they will be making would be an expectation of close to 18 to 20%. That is what they are looking at. That is as you grow in your business, and that is the kind of growth rate that you have to give, because when you are an investor, it makes you run. That is the most important thing. When you are doing your own practice, you kind of just are more sedate. You are not in overdrive. You are not in gear 4, gear 5. I still remember Gaurav, with due regards and due respects, in 2004, 2005, we had come up with the idea of a group practice of making a G8. We are 8 of us flew down to Manesar, or I drove down to Manesar, to have that 8 of us will form a group, and we will control a large part of business for the companies, and we will get better rates and all those things. That never matured. And the person who was the first to oppose that was Dr. Chitra Ramamurthy. And what she said was, what will happen to our children? Unfortunately, you don't know, or fortunately, you don't know where destiny has to take. But Gitansha is a part of their family. But the first objection she said was, "Ke bachon ka kya hoga?" So I don't want to tie up. And if that idea had come to fruition at that particular time, things would have been much, much different than what it is. We had KP Reddy, SPS Garewal, Gaurav, Shobit, Thind, Shri Ganesh, KP Reddy. So we had 8 of us who came, and see, the group practice does not work. It is very good to put it on paper, but I think I will trash it, because it is never going to work. You will have problems. I told you that there can be just anything that can come up by anybody and say, okay, wait, this I do not agree with this. So that is where we are, that you have to look at growth. The investor will make you run. That is most important, that you have to have a running that has to be there, and you have to have funds to run. Now, this is what I told you. When you are starting, you can have business angels. These are private individuals who provide smaller amounts of funding, often at earlier stage of innovation, much earlier than venture capital and private equity. So the first people who give you funds are called as business angels. Then you go on to venture capitals. Then you go on to private equity. Now, within private equity and venture capital will give you a smaller tranche of money. You can give you 10 crores. Private equity will give you 50 crores, 200 crores, 300 crores. And then there are bulge private equity. For example, if today I go to Blackstone, I go to KKR, they will find my business too small, because the minimum check size that they will write would be a 500 to 1,000 crore check size. They're not going to write a check size of 10 crores or 20 crores or 50. So you will have different types of people who will be funding you at various stages, who can fund you. Crowdfunding is something where you are not giving a sizable chunk of your business. You are actually, I today say that, okay, fine, I want investment in Center for Site. I go to Mohan, I go to Himanshu, I go to Rohan, I go to Gaurav, I say, you do this. So people can get you crowdfunding from high net worth individuals. So they can do 1 crore, 2 crore, but then you have a headache of dealing with so many investors, because everybody in his right is कि मैं हूँ, मेरे को बताओ कि ये company ऐसे क्यों grow कर रही है, ऐसे क्यों नहीं grow कर रही है. So therefore there is more headache, because you have a disparate crowd dealing with this thing. With an investor, if you have 1 or 2 or 3 investors, you can deal with them and their thought process is synced. often in crowdfunding, these are people who got money. There could be a Panparag person who has got money, who does not have the thought process of healthcare, but he wants to put money into your business. So he can be a pain in your backside. So that is something very, very important. And then you have early stages, you have venture capital, and you have private equity that is there. Now, the first step for any funding, as I told you when Mohan talked, is what is your business plan? Boss, you have to sell your business plan. They can invest money into a retail store. They can invest money into an IT company. They can invest money into healthcare. They can invest money into an Uber and Ola. They can invest into any damn thing. They have to put their money. Somebody else has put money into the private equity. The private equity, let me just make you understand, a private equity are just managers of somebody else's money. Churches, schools, universities, all of them who are corporates, all of them who have spare money can give it to a private equity. There is somebody smart sitting in the private equity who is going to manage this fund and to give them a return. It is not it is the money of KKR or a Blackstone. It is somebody else's money which KKR and Blackstone are kind of managing. So the first thing that anybody asks, that manager who's managing the money will ask you, boss, आज से 5 साल के बाद या 10 साल के बाद मुझे पैसा कैसे मिलेगा, and what is the exit plan? So they will plan going out of the company right from the beginning कि भाई IPO करोगे, IPO नहीं करोगे, qualified IPO करोगे. There is a waterfall mechanism. Otherwise, you will get a new private equity investor. If you don't get a private equity, you will get me fair market value, or your company will buy, or you will go in for liquidation. So there is a waterfall mechanism that is set by them for the investor कि भाई if you don't succeed in where you are, how do I get my money back? They are boarding a starting train or a moving train as passengers. They will help speed up the train for 5 years, 7 years, but then get out of it. They are not there for life. Understand that particular thing. So first thing they will tell you is what is your business plan? And that's what I said, whether you have an investor or you don't have an investor, it is always good to make a business plan and to see कि भाई आप 5 साल के बाद, 7 साल के बाद कहाँ होगे, and check the boxes. Do monthly meetings, do weekly meetings, do quarterly meetings, and say कि भाई I was supposed to reach this particular thing. Am I reaching that or not? This is a big thing. In a lot of noises made कि भाई there are targets that are given, etc. Targets are essentially, it's not that we crucify anybody or hang somebody by the neck कि भाई तुमने ये target नहीं किया. It is just a question of a self-evaluation. आप आज की तारीख में एग्जाम देते हैं तो there are semesters which we found the best in All India Institute of Medical Sciences that 50% of my marks when I went for the prof were already with the semesters that were done. So you have been evaluating yourself at various milestone basis, and if you are not doing well, you would put in extra work to study and to do those things. So that is something very, very important, that you have to have a business plan. And as Mohan said, you have to have a concept, you have to have marketplace, you have to have financial cash flow statements, etc. So all these things are made. And the business plan ideally should have at least 3 parts that I told you: business operations, customer and target markets, and the value proposition. USP or value proposition is one of the important parts that you have in a business. Now, just to say that if you are looking at an investor, the investor essentially is in 2 forms. One is a financial investor and the other is a strategic investor. If today a private equity invests in, say, Center for Sight, that is a financial investor. On the contrary, if Center for Sight goes and invests into Rajan Eye Care, I am a strategic investor because I am in the same business as Rajan Eye Care is or as Gaurav is. So I become a strategic investor because I bring strengths on the table of ophthalmology. I can probably say get a lens today at 10 rupees, which Mohan is getting at 12 rupees. I can buy a machine, say at 9 rupees, Mohan buys it at 11 rupees. So basically you are synergizing, and at times there can be a duplicacy also, which causes the problem. And Mohan says, I also know ophthalmology, and Mahipal says, I know ophthalmology. So there could be a clash from that perspective as to what it is. But the important thing is that the guiding question for the investor is the investment return. One thing that most of us are afraid as ophthalmologist के वो investor मेरे को खा जाएगा. Investor तुम्हें कभी खा के अपना पैसा नहीं बना सकता. Most important thing is अगर आप हेरा फेरी कर रहे हो, if you are not transparent, if you are doing wrong things, he will screw your happiness. Absolutely correct. But he will never ever jeopardize his own money by putting constraints on you. He can guide you that what you are thinking is wrong. If today I say that I'm going to buy this equipment, he will say, give me an ROI. I'm not able to give him the ROI. He will say, please do not buy. If I say that I'm going to today invest and put up a center in Port Blair, he will say, how much the money do you get in Port Blair? Is Port Blair the only thing where you have to put, or you can put it in say Ranchi? So the discussion is for growth. It is never to put impediments in your growth. They are guided by only one thing, and that is growth. But obviously they are guided by honest growth. That is something very important. Transparent, honest growth is something very, very important. They don't want to burn their fingers if you are dishonest. Okay, so you have to also look at the pedigree of the funds. There are dishonest funds also. There are people who damn care as to from where you get the money. You make money dishonestly. So you have to, I gave up a higher valuation from another fund about whom I didn't know, and I went for Mahindra, because Mahindra today with Center for Sight putting a Mahindra collaboration, something that all of you know who is Anand Mahindra. Okay, you know that he has a stature in the society today. Even as groups, within groups, people can identify. You would put the pedigree of Center for Sight different from a pedigree of, say, an Avasan or an ASG or an IQ or an Agarwal or whatever it is. All of us have pedigrees. So at times you have to choose the pedigree over the total value at what you are getting. So you may sacrifice some value tomorrow. If I do an IPO, if I go as a Mahindra collaboration, I may be able to sell my stakes better to the general public than I would be if I had a foundation instead. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. But remember, both investors typically want the management and the doctors to stay back and run the business. They actually tie you down. I have a non-compete that I cannot set up any competing business with Center for Sight till I retire or till I have even a single shareholding in Center for Sight. So they actually want you to run the business because they are coming in as financial investors and not as strategic investors. Okay, so don't be afraid until, of course, you are doing something wrong that you have to take money. I think that is a misconception. I personally have had good experience. Touch wood, I may have a bad experience tomorrow. That is something different. But they have a different mindset, boss. We are very, very primitive as regards the mindset that we have as compared to them. Our horizon is broadened when these people come and sit in the board meeting. They have connection. They will guide you. Okay, tum ye kar lo. Okay, I know somebody. I can do this thing. Like, for example, today, if I want to go into artificial intelligence, and if I had Matrix is today a tech-driven fund. They have invested in all tech-driven companies, whether it is Quicker, whether it be Zomato, whether it be whatever. This Country Delight, Milk, etc. So basically, they can give you very, very significant strengths, which you yourself will never have. That idea, it is claimed that even Mukesh Ambani, when he's going on a car ride, Himanshu may say he will have a consultant or somebody who has ideas to sit with him in his car so that he doesn't waste that 1 hour. And it is that one idea that can make you big. So that is something very, very important, that they bring a lot of things on the table. Supposing you have to set up a center today and you get Center for Sight as an investor. Boss, I can set up a center in 3 months' time, period. And I know that these are the prices that I get. You will take 1.5 years or 1 year to set up a center. I will set it up in 3 months' time, and I will get you all the equipment, everything, and I will help reduce you the cost also for doing that. So there are strengths that people this thing, and it has to be a win-win situation that you grow together. I think I have talked about financial and strategic investors. These are just in the slide that is being done. And finally, last 2 slides, there is a hierarchy of capital structure, which is going from the highest risk to the lowest risk, or from the lowest risk to the highest. So the senior debt is something that a bank gives you. Collateral, payment structure. If you don't pay, you go into a non-performing asset. They can liquidate you. They can, if you have pledged your property, like Malia's properties are being auctioned today. So that is called as a senior debt. The second is a subordinate debt or a mezzanine debt. What is a mezzanine debt? It's a new term that you may not know. Today, supposing I am going in for a new private equity infusion and I need a debt to buy shares of my old private equity and sell it to a new private, I can go to somebody and say, "Bhai, tu mujhe mezzanine debt de de." And that mezzanine is to cover. So mezzanine is in between 2 floors. So that is between, say, ground floor and the first floor, you have a mezzanine floor. So that is only for this limited period that they are going to give you a debt. And you can take a debt and return it, कि भाई मैं तुमको वापस कर दूंगा जो कुछ भी है, and then it is not from a bank, but it is not. See, normally banks, what do they give you? They give you term loans. They give you a project loan कि आपने ये project किया, इसके लिए term loan. I can say that I want to buy the equity from my previous investor and want to give it. So that the banks will never give you. Understand? There is a bigger risk, so they will give you a mezzanine debt which a private equity can give. And then you have what is called as a convertible debt or a convertible equity, which is a hybrid. That means that my debt can today, it is a debt today, but it becomes into an equity tomorrow. You understand? That means that I have given you 1 crore of rupees as a debt. You give me 10%, 12% till this time, and then it will be converted. So it's a CCPS. Convertible debentures जैसे होते हैं, so it's a convertible equity structure which is there. There could be a non-convertible debenture, which is a fixed term kind of a situation that you have and you pay the person. But a convertible issuance is something where your debt becomes into equity, and then you have preferred equity. A preferred equity means that in the event of a default or a liquidation, the private equity person will get his money first, and I have a common equity, I will be the last person to get the money. So preferred equity is coming above common equity. Common equity is initially the founders, and preferred equity is somebody, a private equity will always come as a preferred equity. So the risk is higher than a debt, but it is lower than the founder. Okay. So finally, what I will just say is that equity financing, there are pros and cons. Equity does not need to be repaid, but you are giving away shares of your larger growth if you can have a larger growth. But fine, you enlarge the cake. The cake is this big. You are holding 80% of the cake. You make the cake this bigger, and that is with the money or the gunpowder that you have of theirs, and you can give them 20% of it, but then you get a larger slice of it than what you would have if you did not have the funds. Common shareholders are not guaranteed a dividend, so there is no fixed cost to cover. You do not have a fixed cost to cover. It is likely to be less restrictive than debt, which comes with covenants, and no requirement to pledge your assets. So today, I have not pledged my house or my personal property to the private equity who has put in money into me. But if I was to take this 200 crore or 225 crores, if I was to take from a bank, I would have to pledge everything that I have to that 225, because they will need to cover it by at least 2x or something like that. So therefore, you have that. Now, in bonds, we have that issue share means partnering with ownership. All shareholders are classified as investors. There is no tax reduction. So there is one big difference, that if I take a loan, I am paying an interest of say 1 crore rupees a month. This 1 crore rupee goes out of my income. But if I have an investor, it will not go out of my income, because I am not giving him any money as a fixed return. So that is something very, very important. And then there are certain, I think it is something very good. People consider it back. There are a lot of administrative things that you have to do as a company. The company today, the company law board has made a lot of changes in the companies act, where you have to give a lot of filing and everything. There has to be a transparency, etc. So you are doing your things in a particular manner. And I think whenever you have standard operating procedures, it makes you more effective, more ये चलता है एटीट्यूड नहीं होता कि यार कर लूंगा, मैं फाइल कर लूंगा, ये कर लूंगा, वो कर लूंगा. आपको हर क्वार्टर में अपनी बैलेंस शीट फाइल करनी होती है. दैट इज समथिंग वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट यू हैव. एंड the owner may not be able to make strategic decisions. As I said, that the investor may use his brain, or he will use his brain to tell whether you are making a right choice or not. Debt, I have already said that debt needs to be paid at some point of time, and the interest one pays is tax deductible, but the interest and the initial thing has to be repaid to the people. So that is the difference between debt, and that is the difference between private equity. So friends, I don't know whether I have confused you or I have given you some information, or which fund if something has been made clearer, etc. But I think if you get into the game, you will understand what it is, and you have to decide what is right for you. What is your current capital structure? Have you previously taken debt? Do not over leverage debt. Take debt, maintain your debt equity ratio, but do not over leverage debt. You have to have a business plan that you will be able to repay the debt. That is something very, very important. Do you simply need capital? Are you looking for wider support in growing your business? अगर आपने business grow ही नहीं करना, you are happy sitting with one center. You don't need debt, you don't need equity. Just relax, play tennis and golf every day in the morning, and that's about it. What factors other than capital will help you realize your strategy is something very, very important. Whether you need a strategic investor, whether you need someone to do your marketing, someone to do your the sales, someone to do your business development, etc. Where are you in your business life cycle? Today, I would say that I am in towards the later part of my business life cycle, being 62, 63 years of age. How many more years do I have? Do I have a succession plan? Is there somebody else who can run the company, etc., etc.? So where are you in the business life cycle is something very, very important. Do not over leverage and overstretch yourself if you do not have a follow-up mechanism, and you do not and you think that, see, we are all perishable companies. That is the truth. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the older you get, the nearer you are to the end. So you have to see as to where you have to, what is the life cycle, and what are your aspirations. What do you want to achieve? That is something that you need to define. And I think there is no harm. That is what the younger generation is going to learn much more than what we learned, is to dream. Take a dream, and as Kalamji said, Abdul Kalam, a dream is not something that comes in your sleep, but it is something that does not make you sleep. So friends, dream big and take decisions which are right. You may be wrong. In US, there is a premium involved to somebody who tried and failed, rather than a person who never tried. So if you just going on your footsteps and you do not try, like if I would have failed, did not matter. I left. I could have, Atul is my contemporary. I could have become a director or chief of RP Center or AIMS, etc. So that is something where you have to tread your own path. But try and fail is bigger than not trying at all. So have a dream, dream it, and try to be honest, transparent, to run your dream, and above all, be hardworking. There is no shortcut to hard work. There are no free lunches in life. You have to work very hard. I do not subscribe to the concept of work-life balance. Yes, there can be work-life balance, but you have to burn yourself out for X number of years to create something. That is something very, very important that I would wish to say that there is no substitute for hard work and honest hard work. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Brilliant, Mahipal. Absolutely outstanding and brilliant. I think there is pin drop silence.
Amazing.
I'm psyched. I might take 10 years to come out of this.
Incredible stuff, Mahipal.
Amazing.
If
So
the
much
juniors
clarity
are
of
wa-
thoughts.
I wish you had talked the entire session.
yeah. If the juniors are watching, I think they need to see it at least 10 times to even understand 5% of what he said. Even to understand
What I was
5%.
saying, pin drop silences where people don't understand anything.
No, it's so good. Very nice.
Great.
I just have one question, Mahipal.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know what is the starting point. For example, I have a turnover of 30 crores and an EBITDA of about 5 crores. Okay. What is the starting point for me, the investor? What I should expect?
That's a very difficult question to answer. The point is that, it's not actually a difficult question, but ultimately at the end of the day, the most important thing is what is your growth? Okay, if you are growing at 5%, 6%, 7%, it is going to be of no interest to me as an investor. Supposing I have to come in as an investor. If I see low-hanging fruits in your business which you are not capitalizing on today, and I can spur the growth from 5-6% to 20%, or if you have plans which can take you to a higher percentage, then I will invest and give you a higher multiple. A decaying business or a static business will always get lower valuation and lower multiples than a business that is growing. And that is the difference between a Swiggy and a Zomato and Center for Sight or us. Because we are not that scalable models. In healthcare, we are better scalable models than, say, a big hospital. We are asset light and we can do that. But what is important is what is your EBITDA? What is your PAT? What have you grown over time? Where do I see this business 5 years down the line? And are you a Me Too product or are you a different product? A Me Too product today, what is the barrier to entry between Rajan Eye Care going to, say, Bangalore and a Center for Sight which has more money than you going to Bangalore? How are you going to be different from others? Okay. So that is the point which is there. See, there can be other things also, which we also do at times is consolidation. One thing that you have to understand is that you as Mohan Rajan or say Gaurav as Gaurav today, until of course he has big plans, will not be able to monetize his business. You are an illiquid asset. God forbid something happens to the key drivers of that business, you will be valued at best at the book value. Okay, if I have to buy you out after something happens, supposing God forbid you are incapacitated or whatever, or something happens to somebody, if the dependency as a key man risk is very, very high on you, you will only be valued at your book value. Okay. But if you are a growing business, a Zomato and a Swiggy today, they have shown that they are growing at 60, 70, 80%. Today, I would say that a Lenskart today is valued at 12,000 crores. He started in 2010, much later than Mohan, what you started or what I started. But the scalability of the business and the non-dependability on key people is something that makes that business look good for an investor. Understood? He can go to Chennai, he can go to Singapore, he can go to Sri Lanka, he can go anywhere because his model is there. He has a supply side. Okay, so I buy a frame for 500 rupees, he manufactures his frame for 200 rupees. You have an optical lens that you buy from an Essilor or a GKB or somebody and you buy it for 500 rupees, he makes it for 100 rupees after getting the plans. So there is a model which has juice in it. Therefore, what question you are asking is your growth plans. That is going to be the most important, what you put on the table as a growth plan. If you have to sell me a sedate business, my multiple will be lower as compared to a evolving business, or if I have to invest, say, money on Rohan versus Mohan, I will invest in Rohan, not Mohan. Because Rohan, if he is giving me a business which is at the bubble stage, which is at the nascent stage, I know that this guy has the capability of growing 10x in 10 years, and Mohan will not be able to grow 10x. Okay, so I don't know whether I have answered your question, but I will not give you an absolute figure as to what it is. The multiples can vary over this thing. That is why today, even in the listed market, a pathology chain has higher multiples that they attract than a hospital chain. A hospital has a a gestation period of 5 to 7 years to start to break even. Okay, a new hospital, if I put up like a Apollo or a Max, it will take me 5-7 years to break even. But a pathology chain, if I set up a small place where I'm collecting the samples and taking it to a central lab, etc., it will break even in 3 months or 6 months or maybe lower. So you put up a store anywhere, you are broken even. So the multiple difference is almost 2x. Like the multiples of a pathology chain are almost 1.8 to 2 times the multiples that hospital chain attracts. Eye care has still to find its place. People would try to put eye care, if it is a scalable business, somewhere between pathology and hospital.
So a lot of these investors are going to ride the bus. They are only interested in profits. You are a professional. You have to run the business. That's what you are here for. There are two parts that he's talked about. One is professional, being an ophthalmologist, which you always want to be good. But the business part of it, how to grow the business. Two separate things, and too well said. And that's what we have to see. All these PE funds and all, they have a business plan to run away from you in 3 to 5 years. They'll sell their stake. They made the 30-40%. When they get money and funding at 2 to 5% internationally, they are happy making 20% on that. So this is what happens to them. Am I right, Mahipal?
Yeah, so Himanshu, they don't actually get money at 2 to 5%. They don't borrow, but it's a question that supposing I am a university, I have collected. I was surprised to see who are the people who give funds to Matrix. I never knew that a church or a university is actually giving money to the private equity, because the only thing that these guys are good at, a church or a education, is that they know their business, they collect their money. But where to park that excess money? If you go to a bank with a negative rate of interest, or you get 1% or 2%, that is useless. So if you have an established fund, it is the pedigree that counts of that fund. If the pedigree of the fund is strong and they have year after year given a return, so these funds go to the market and they say, I want to make a $20 billion fund or a $10 billion or a $1 billion fund. They will collect it from the people who believe that they will be able to get you the returns, and they get this money. So it is the actual end person who is not able to utilize his money to get a higher return, that they give it to the private equity.
We'll have to get Mahipal, Mohan, we'll have to get Mahipal for a 10-hour talk. We'll have, in every session, we'll have to have him do an entrepreneurship talk from him every time to stimulate us.
Amazing.
Totally different league, sir. Totally different league. I mean, his thought process is always amazing.
Yeah, thinking is totally different, and I'm sure the future generation will start thinking like. That's what I expect.
We are not exposed to this at all in our profession. We have segregated ourselves in that small well. What Mohan Mahipal said is something very important. All these separate people, even he mentioned in the previous meeting, that meeting people outside your profession is the most important thing. These guys are brilliant. Some of these business people and some of these guys who are there, our next speaker will give you a lot of ideas. These are people who know a lot of stuff happening around in the world and what's going on. We are in a very small thing that I am a little better surgeon. Uska case mere paas aa gaya, बहुत खुश हो गया मैं. Chennai का case मेरे पास आ गया तो मैं तो बड़ा सर्जन हो गया. This is that nonsense they are stuck. They are way beyond all that in that, and we need to understand that and gradually seep it down our nerves to understand what exactly is value recognition and investing in your own business. Thanks, Mahipal.